evening and welcome to the Tuesday, December 17th, 2024 meeting of the Greensboro City Council. Let the record reflect that all members are in attendance. Mrs. Hoffman is attending via Zoom. We are in the Katie Dorset Council Chamber. We are going to begin tonight's meeting with a moment of silence, and of course it goes without saying that we are going to keep the family and friends of Yvonne Johnson securely in our prayers. Thank you. Mr. Holston, would you lead us in the pledge? Please silence all electronic devices. If you must make or receive a phone call, kindly do so from outside the council chamber. The Greensboro City Council welcomes resident input, and it's important for all attendees to feel that the Katie Dorset Council Chamber is a welcoming and safe space. The City of Greensboro is committed to promoting an environment that is free of discrimination, bias, and bullying. Therefore, speakers shall refrain from personal attacks. The presiding officer has the authority to enforce the rules of decorum. Speakers or audience members who intentionally disrupt the meeting or ridicule other speakers will be given a warning, and if unheeded, will be removed from the meeting. That person or persons will be suspended from in-person participation for the next 3 months. In order to preserve their right to free speech, they may attend virtually by Zoom, phone, or may submit comments via email. Individuals may sign up to speak to a specific consent or business agenda item. Speakers must be signed up to speak by 6 p.m. Any speaker handouts must be provided to the city clerk or courier for distribution to council. Residents are not allowed to approach the dais unless invited by council to do so. All speakers must check in with the courier to confirm their presence at the meeting. Speakers are allotted 3 minutes and can speak once on an agenda item. Depending on the number of speakers, council may decrease this time allocation. Speakers may not relinquish their time to other speakers. Zoning matters do allow for a 15-minute presentation, both for and against, and there is a 5-minute rebuttal. By statute, council members must vote on all items unless there is a direct financial interest or if they sit on a board of a nonprofit receiving funding from the city. All votes will be moved and seconded. I do have a request to postpone to the second meeting in January, which is, let's see, you should know that. That will be January 21st, item H3, which is one of our zoning matters. And H3 is a public hearing for an ordinance for rezoning 1326 Seminole Drive and a portion of 1041 Battleground Avenue for the City of Greensboro. This will be without further advertising. Do I have a motion? Moved by Mr. Matheny, seconded by Mr. Holston. All in favor say aye. Aye. Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. So we will be taking that up at our second meeting in November,
No.
in January. Yeah.
We
Sorry.
can push it to November if you want.
No, that's quite all right.
But our goal is to have a meeting with city staff and to try to clear up anything on the emails that y'all sent. Thank you for communicating with me. Thank you for communicating with the city. And we'll get together in the new year. Thank you.
Item E1 is a resolution naming December 21st National Homeless Persons Memorial Day. Mr. Holston?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whereas December 21, 2024 marks the first day of winter and is the longest night of the year. Whereas the National Coalition for the Homeless and National Health Care for the Homeless Council have designated December 21, 2024 as National Homeless Persons Memorial Day. Whereas the City of Greensboro, the City of High Point, and Guilford County have jointly designated December 21, 2024 as National Homeless Persons Memorial Day. Whereas in the season of generosity and sharing, residents of Guilford County are encouraged to commit themselves to promoting compassion and concern for all, particularly during the winter months that pose extreme hardships for residents who are less fortunate and without homes. Whereas homelessness continues to be a serious challenge for many Guilford County citizens who have the right to adequate food, housing, clothing, safety, and health care. Whereas homelessness significantly increases one's risk of illness, injury, and death. Whereas the Homeless Memorial Services will take place in the City of High Point on Tuesday, December 17, and the Walk of Remembrance will take place in the City of Greensboro on Wednesday, December 18, 2024, to honor those who have passed away in 2024 as a result of homelessness. Whereas by joining together and remembering our neighbors, we can honor their lives by working to provide solutions to end homelessness within Guilford County. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Greensboro that December 21, 2024 is hereby named National Homeless Persons Memorial Day in the City of Greensboro to remember those who have died homeless and to encourage citizens to come together to celebrate their lives by working to resolve the factors that lead to homelessness without the community. Adopted this, the 17th of December, 2024. And I move that, Madam Mayor.
Second. Moved by Mr. Holston, seconded by Mrs. Thurm. Council, please vote. And I do see Sherry Neal, our partner from across the plaza. We will. And that passes 8-0.
First of all, I just want to say thank you. My name is Sherry Neal, and I am the COC Program Manager for Guilford County, but I am also the collaborative applicant for NC 504. And on the behalf of the COC Chair and the complete Continuum of Care, Guilford County Continuum of Care, we would like to thank you from the city for your resolution and acknowledging December 21st. And thank you for also recognizing that those 26 lives that have been lost this year, on those that have experienced homelessness. Thank you all again, and appreciate your continued support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Sherry, I just want to say thank you and the work that you do with the COC. I'm a member with the Greensboro Housing Coalition, and you do an excellent job, and thanks so much for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Sherry, how you doing?
Good.
I'm right here. You're looking around. It's not God. It's just me. Thank you, as you said, for what you do, and I do want to follow up on our meeting from a few months ago. I know everybody's busy, but if you could respond to one of those emails and let's schedule something in the new year, that'd be great.
I will schedule that right in the beginning of the year.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So, thank you, Sherry, for being the collaborative applicant. I serve on the COC as a representative of the City of Greensboro.
Yes.
So I know the work you do and the work COC's been doing for quite a while to help the homeless population. So I appreciate all that you do and the way you lead us, making sure that we are following all the rules and regulations as well that HUD has set out for us to make sure that we are serving the population in the best manner possible.
Yes.
So,
Thank you, and thank you for serving on the board as well, your active participation.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move on to our consent agenda, which are items G1 through G9. Anything to remove or? Okay, it's moved by Dr. Wells, seconded by Mr. Holston. Council, please vote. And that passes 8-0. Now we will move on to the public hearing portion of our agenda. Items H1 and H2 will be read together. Item H1 is a public hearing for an ordinance text annexing territory into the corporate limits for the property located at 4409 North Danbury Castle Road, 3.176 acres. Trace A. McKinney for McKinney & Sons Construction, LLC. And item H2 is a public hearing for an ordinance for original zoning for 4409 North Danbury Castle Road, Trace A. McKinney for McKinney & Sons Construction, LLC. I do not have any speakers signed up on this item. If you could give us a brief overview.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor Vaughn. I'm Luke Carter with the City of Greensboro Planning Department, and I'll be introducing the item. This is the zoning map of the subject property, showing that it contains approximately 3.176 acres. It's currently zoned County CZ PDR SP, which is conditional zoning with a planned development for residential uses and then a special use permit on top of that. The special use permit is only for the signage that was approved with that request. That was back in the 80s. That's a remnant type zoning, so that has no effect on the use itself. So long story short, it's for residential uses. They are requesting annexation and original zoning to City R5. You'll notice to the north of the request is zoned County RS20. To the south of the request and the east of the request have the same zoning as the subject property, CZ PDR SP, and then to the west of the request is County CZ MXU. This is the aerial map of the subject property, showing that north of the request is north and east of the request are single-family dwellings, south of the request is I-73, and west of the request is an office use. The generalized future land use map designates the property as residential, and the future built form map designates the property as urban general. There are no conditions with this request, and in recommending approval, staff notes that the GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan designates the site as urban general on the future built form map and residential on the future land use map. The proposed original zoning request supports both the comprehensive plan's Creating Great Places goal to expand Greensboro's citywide network of unique neighborhoods, offering residents of all walks of life a variety of quality housing choices, and the filling in our framework big idea to arrange our land uses for where we live, work, attend school, shop, and enjoy our free time to create a more vibrant and livable Greensboro. The proposed R5 zoning district is primarily intended to accommodate low-density, single-family residential uses, and the uses that are proposed are similar to those that are existing on adjacent tracts. With that, I can answer any questions that you have.
Is this a request that's primarily for water, other services?
In order to develop the property with water and sewer, they do need to be annexed, yes. It's Growth Tier 1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion or? Moved by Mrs. Thurm, seconded by Mrs. Abuzawader. This is for the annexation portion. Please vote. The second item will require a statement of consistency. Well, I got to wait for that. Passes 8-0. The next item is moved by Mrs. Thurm, seconded by Mrs. Abuzawader.
The Greensboro City Council believes that its action to approve the original zoning request for the property at 4409 North Danby Castle Road from County CZPD RSP, conditional zoning, plan development, residential with a special use permit for the master sign plan, to City R5, residential single family 5, to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 comprehensive plan, and considers the action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan's future built form map and future land use map. The proposed City R5 zoning district permits uses that fit the context of surrounding area and limits negative impacts on the adjacent properties. The request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
Council, please vote. That passes 8-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We now move on to the general business portion of our agenda. Item I-1 is a resolution to approve contract 12373 in the amount of $2,899,918 for stop-loss policy. Do I have a motion?
Move. Second.
Moved by Mr. Holston, seconded by Mrs. Thurm. Council, please vote. And that passes 8-0. I will read in I-2, 3, and 4 together. Item I-2 is a resolution repealing the unissued balance of the general obligation refunding bond order adopted by the City Council of the City of Greensboro, North Carolina on June 21st, 2020. And item I-3, a resolution making certain findings and determinations and authorizing the filing of an application with the Local Government Commission in connection with the proposed issuance of general obligation refunding bonds by the city. And item I-4, which is an order authorizing $6.3 million general obligation bonds. The Finance Director is designated to make and file the sworn statement of debt of the city and the statement of disclosures that will be filed by the clerk with the Local Government Commission, and the clerk will publish the bond order as required. Do we have a motion on I-2? Moved by Dr. Wells, seconded by Mrs. Hightower. And that passes 8-0. I need a motion on I-3.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Thurm, seconded by Mrs. Abuzuater. Council, please vote. And that passes 8-0. I need a motion on I-4. Moved by Mrs. Abuzuater, seconded by Mr. Holston. Council, please vote. And that passes 8-0. Item I-5 and I-6, I'll read in together. Item I-5 is a resolution authorizing and approving bond anticipation notes and the amendment and restatement of a joint governmental agreement regarding the Piedmont Triad Regional Water Authority, and I-6, a resolution approving the city's obligations under its joint governmental agreement with Piedmont Triad Regional Water Authority and other local government members. Do I have a motion for I-5? Moved by Mr. Holston, seconded by Dr. Wells. Council, please vote. That passes 8-0. I need a motion for I-6. Moved by Mrs. Hightower, seconded by Mr. Holston. Council, please vote. And that passes 8-0. Item I-7 is an ordinance in the amount of $12,947,588 to appropriate limited obligation bond proceeds for radios. Moved by Mr. Holston, seconded by Dr. Wells. Council, please vote.
Councilmember Matheny?
Are you a yes? Okay. He is a yes. And that passes 8-0. That is the end of our printed agenda for this evening. I know that we're all going to have some reflections about the loss of Mayor Pro Tem Yvonne Johnson, but let's just get some housekeeping out of the way first. Any boards or commission appointments?
Yes, I have two. I'm going to reappoint Anthony Izzard to the Parks and Rec Commission. He is eligible for reappointment.
Okay, so do you have a second for that? Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 8-0.
And I would like to appoint Patricia Wisniewski to the Participatory Budgeting Commission. She's eligible for reappointment, and I know she wants to serve again as well.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously.
That's all.
Any other boards and commissions? Ms. Hugh?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'd like to reappoint Mr. Bryant Keith Peterson to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Do we have a second? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 8-0. Mrs. Hoffman, do you have any appointments?
I have none. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Brief business updates, Mrs. Hightower?
I don't have
No. Mr. Holston? Mr. Mazzini? Mrs. Abuzuader? Dr. Wells? Council comments? After this, yes.
I do want to commend the Safer Cities. I went to their celebration for the senior citizens, and it was packed with people. Councilman Holston was also in attendance, but I appreciate the fact that they remember one of the citizens who had been very supportive for years, and so they continue to remember her by honoring other senior citizens.
Thank you. Mrs. Thurman? Mrs. Hoffman, do you have any council comments?
Oh, yes, very briefly. I was unable to attend Yvonne's service on Saturday, but I watched, and it was lovely. I was happy that I was able to do that. She's an extraordinary person. I'm honored that I have known her and been able to work with her as a colleague these 14 years. She was amazing in many ways, and a woman of great substance. And she gave back in an amazing way to this city. And I just my thoughts and are with her family and her friends at this point, and we will obviously miss her greatly. Her wisdom, her loyalty, and her absolute love of the city of Greensboro and our citizens. So I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity to know and work with her these couple of decades. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I appreciate you kicking us off. I know that we all have comments and reflections about Mayor Pro Tem. Mrs. Hightower?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's hard to talk about Yvonne without getting emotional. It's hard to look down the dais and not see her there. It's hard to think about not hearing her cute little nuggets of wisdom and humor that she would always say. Even when I wore something different, she asked me had I been shopping at the Goodwill, and she always said it, though it was never offensive. I would like to say that. I think from her heart, she was genuine. I appreciate her mentoring me and working with me. A lot of times we didn't agree. But even in disagreeing with her, she almost made you feel bad like you did disagree with her, because she never once said, well, oh, that's terrible. She said, okay, baby, well, that's how you see it. So to have known her as long as I have, actually before I got on council, but to not really know her, because to find out so many things about her, she was such an icon in this community, someone that we can be proud of for years to come, that we knew her. We can pattern our lives after her. Certainly in the way she served the citizens of Greensboro, and I think that should be all our mantra, is service to this community. And so I certainly will miss her, and calling her sometime and talking with her. One thing that she and I had so much in common was we don't do mornings, and so you knew not to call her before 10 o'clock in the morning, which is, I'm the same way. And so she would keep her phone off, and so because she meant what she said, but she did it in such a way that it was very loving and kind and considerate, because she truly cared about this city that she lived in. But she has left an indelible mark on the city of Greensboro, and she will continue to be missed. I just don't know if anybody can sit in that seat. I really don't. Just don't think they can. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Hugh?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Wow. I actually met Yvonne prior to coming to council and had some opportunities to talk and engage and interact with her. Since coming to council, I've had even more of an opportunity, and taking Sharon's words, I'm sure others will be saying the same thing. It was a true honor to work with Yvonne Johnson. She was a trailblazer, she was a leader, she was a mentor, and she was a friend. She was probably the only one that, you see us council members sitting up here and Council Member Hoffman at home, and we'd be back in a closed session, and we'd be talking, maybe sometimes loudly, and talking over each other and doing all kinds of things. But when Yvonne Johnson spoke, the room stopped, and the room listened, and the room took it to heart, because we knew that when Yvonne was speaking, that she was speaking from her heart. It didn't matter if she agreed with you or not. She was speaking from her heart, and you knew it came from a place of truth and trust and honesty. And that is really what I'm going to miss with Madam Pro Tem Yvonne Johnson. Just that ability to always cut through to the core issue. Even when we had sessions in here with neighborhoods and there'd be a very contentious situation or case in front of us, and even when she did not agree with the community in here, she would always stop and have a conversation with them right from her seat, and say something that was comforting, and you could see their heads nod, even though just 5 minutes earlier they weren't nodding at all. She just had that ability. And I really appreciate what Yvonne promoted with her family, about family being important, being critical. Because when it comes down to it, family is what we have. We have the ability to smile together, laugh together, cry together. And I like to think that the city council was a part of that family. Not the immediate family, but a part of that family. And so I have a hole in my heart missing Yvonne. I know that her family has a hole, and all prayers for comfort and strength for them. But our entire Greensboro community has a hole in our heart, and we're all in mourning. and will never forget the trailblazer and the friend that Yvonne Johnson was. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Zach? Want me to come back? Mary Kay?
I think we all are pretty emotional. I said I was going to try to get through this. Yvonne is watching and probably saying a few things on the microphone that shouldn't be said. I try to think of those days, and one time my husband texted me and said, "Can y'all cut off her microphone?" And I think many of you heard at the funeral, the mayor had asked her several times. She wasn't going to cut off that microphone. She was just going to keep going and keep going on. And, as Mrs. Hightower said, yes, she would agree with you, and she would show that face when she disagreed with you, but she always, it was just like, that vote's done, let's move on, how you doing? I think there was one time, and I told the mayor about this, a few other people, we disagreed pretty big on one item, and she happened to be in the elevator when we were going home with me, and I was like, oh boy, I don't want Yvonne mad at me, I don't want Yvonne mad at me. And she went like this, and she said, just took my shoulder and did like that, and she said, now we disagree, but I just want you to go home and pray about that. And it was just like, that just relieved the whole pressure of the moment. So she just could see what you needed at the moment, and that was so important. So important when you're sitting in this seat. So important when you know her as a friend. A lot of people don't even know. We talked at least every other day, because she would call me to check on the schedule, and she'd say, don't tell the mayor I forgot this, but I'm checking the schedule with you. So, it was little things like that that endeared her to you. Of course, she's a trailblazer, an icon. She was so proud that she founded the Drifters. That's a group, and they raise money for scholarships. They do a lot of things. They have a national convention. She was so proud of that group, so proud of her sorority sisters, so proud of her Bennett College. Bennett College was, she would not stop talking about it, because that is what she wanted us to remember, that Bennett College is a jewel in the city of Greensboro. And, she really talked about her Bennett bells. And as Elma Adams always says, Bennett bells are voting bells. So I think every candidate made sure they made at least one stop at Bennett College, because they do go vote. Beyond that, she was a person who truly loved her community, loved her family, her children, Walter, Vernon, Lisa, Shannon, and those grandkids. For those of you who were able to watch the funeral or attend the funeral, I know a lot of the staff was there. People from every walk of life was at the funeral the other day. But to hear those grandkids talk about their grandma and their Grammy, and just how much she loved them, and her great-grands, there will never be another Yvonne. No one can fill her shoes. Her shoes are bigger than all of us. Thank you.
Let's go round two.
Zach got
You're right that to be there, if you watch anything, I just saw those flowers for the first time. To see her grandchildren speak was the most amazing, and her granddaughter sang. I got elected in 2007,
And I got to see history sitting beside her when she was elected mayor and sworn in. And I watched history until God called her home. Mary Kay's right. In the history of the city of Greensboro, there will never be anyone like Yvonne. If she was here, she'd say, boy, you better get your... But she always, every meeting, said, Zach, how my babies? How my babies? She always asked about my children because she cared about everybody, everywhere. Her love for the city of Greensboro, her love for helping people, even people like me, and mentoring and talking. So, like, you never knew what was going to come out of her mouth. And so it was, she's the funniest human being I ever met, too. But when she spoke, to Hugh's point, it mattered. And the respect that she didn't ask for, she just deserved. She was one of a kind. And I will miss her. Her support that she gave me. The love she gave me. And the hugs she gave all of us. Coming in tonight, and not seeing her car. Greensboro lost a really special person. And probably the best solitaire Sudoku player in the history of the world. I'll miss her. I loved her. She was very special to me.
Thank you. Tammy?
What to say? Now, Zach, you started it, and now I'm in trouble. I probably knew her the shortest period of time of anybody on council. But the impact she had on me was huge. She was the first to welcome me to council. She was the first to offer to help me and mentor me and show me the way. And she was among the first when I had my first really hard meeting to put her arm around me, give me a hug, and say, "You can't take it personally, baby." And she would say that to us, to me, to all of us, frequently. And that meant the world. As much as we are going to miss Yvonne and what she did for our community, I have no doubt but that our community will be influenced by her children and her family and her grandchildren going forward. When you listen to the speeches that her grandchildren gave, they're the future leaders of Greensboro and of communities. And they are amazing people, and we will have Yvonne's influence with us for generations to come, thanks to her and what she brought and the values that she taught us all and her family. She was an amazing, amazing woman, and I can only hope to be half the council representative that she was for our community.
Thank you. Dr. Wells?
Tammy said she's probably known us the least, but I've known her the longest. Yvonne and I met in the 60s. Both of us were dating, and I came to Greensboro, and Walter had a party, and we were invited. And Yvonne was the hostess. They weren't married, but she was the hostess. So I met her there, striking that picture that was on the front of that station look, striking, beautiful, tall, and she was running things at the party. Well, then years kind of passed by, and when I married and came back to Greensboro, she and Walter were married, and we bought houses in the same neighborhood. I live on the street that goes this way. She lives on one that goes right up the street. So the children, I have one daughter, but she had the 4. And when we talked about Miss Johnson, Kelly was saying, I remember one day Miss Johnson came on that bus and she was making Vernon didn't want to go to school and she was trying to get it. So T and Kelly were in the same classroom all through their high school days. But the thing that we heard over and over at the funeral about her heart, she said, go with your heart. She had a big heart, a big heart. And I sat there and listened to all the things folks said. I remember I probably wouldn't be sitting here today, but when we had the Winn-Dixie closed in 1998, and I pulled the people together. We've got to do something about it. She and Claudette encouraged me to become the spokesperson for the concerned citizens of Northeast Greensboro. And after serving for 8 years there, she and Claudette asked me to run for city council because Claudette was retiring, and they encouraged me to come to be on the city council. All of the things that we think about, we never heard her boasting. You never would have known all of the things that she did because she never boasted, but she knew who she was. She didn't move once. Now, when we moved over there in Kings Forest, black folks couldn't live over in the west side of town. But this was the first area that was open, so the teachers at A&T and city teachers, we moved to Kings Forest. But as soon as it opened up in West Greensboro, everybody left us. Yvonne and Walter were a power couple. He was a lawyer. He became the chair of the school board. She could have moved anywhere she wanted to. But she said, I'm staying in our community. And she stayed there. And I thank the Lord that and then some things came up in time, but she knew who she was. She didn't let it shake her. No, she kept moving forward. I think she was a natural mediator. And we saw that sitting here. There could be a big controversy from there or even up here. And she'd sit and wait, make the last comment. But that last comment calmed the storm. She could always do that. And you wouldn't think she was paying any attention to what was going on. And then by having her sitting here, she would doodle, and then she'd write a funny note. And then I'm sitting here trying to keep from laughing. But she just kind of laughed under her breath. She had us, and they talked about her sense of humor. But I just thank the Lord for allowing our paths to cross. She had an influence on me being where I am. It's my custom at funerals. I go up to the casket and I talk to the people for closure. When I stood there Saturday, I thanked her for all the things she'd done for me, how she'd helped me to become who I am. And rest in peace. Rest in peace. All of us, there's a time that we are allowed to be here and to pay our rent, in her words. So we're here for a time, but the time that she was here, there was a major impact on so many lives. The thing that she used to say to me all the time is, you'd be a better person if you wore some pants. I said, Yvonne, you know I don't wear pants. You would be a better person if you wore some pants. So I'm not going to wear pants, Yvonne, but I will remember all of the good times and all of the things that you've done, that she did to make this city a better city. And all of us have our own personal encounters and things that we could say about her. But she was one of those people that was bigger than life. But she didn't flaunt it. Never flaunted it. What's that Rudyard Kipling thing? She know how to walk with kings but not lose the common touch.
Mrs. Hoffman, I think you wanted to add something?
Yes. You know, I always find it very, there's a Hebrew proverb that I always find very comforting in thinking about people who have left us. And so I'll add Yvonne to that. It's very simple. It simply says, say not in grief that she is no more, but in thankfulness that she was. So we're all blessed, I think, by having known and lived among Yvonne Johnson for the years that we had with her. So I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you. I had the pleasure of the honor of speaking at Yvonne's homegoing service, and you know, her grandchildren really were rock stars. I think listening to her children and her grandchildren makes us all want to be better parents and grandparents. The love that they talked about and the stories. You know, one thing about her service is that there was so much laughter. There were just great Yvonne stories, and it was just a life so well lived. You know, I have a couple only Yvonne stories, and so I've known Yvonne since 1997, so there's a lot of water under that bridge. And I do have to thank her because she did mentor me without being a mentor. She was not overbearing. I remember a couple of times where I would be speaking and she would just reach over and she'd grab my hand, and I knew what she was saying was enough. And I appreciated that. But I remember when I was coming back on council, the League of Women Voters had a forum, and that's when they would have a couple hundred people show up. And they asked a question that was a little off topic. It was something that the city of Greensboro doesn't have any purview in. And I was sitting next to Mike Barber at the time, and he's like, how are we going to answer that one? And they called on Yvonne first, and she knocked it out of the park. And Mike was like, only Yvonne. Only Yvonne would have come up with that answer because it was so on point and it was genuine, and that's just the way she was. We all have a lot of funny stories about her, and one that I remember, and many people out there will probably have seen it, was when we first started doing Zoom meetings. We probably have a lot of blooper reels on these Zoom meetings, especially in the beginning. And I remember looking at the Brady Bunch squares, and Yvonne was sitting there smoking a cigarette. And I texted David Parrish, and I said, David, Yvonne's smoking. And he was like, only Yvonne. She can do what she wants. And so maybe somebody told her that she was smoking. She was in her own house. She could do what she wants. Then all of a sudden you'd see her head go out of the square and the smoke would go wafting by. But I love that about Yvonne because she was just one of the most genuine people you would ever want to meet. And somebody said that she could have lived anywhere, and that is true. She and Walter could have lived anywhere, and they chose to make their home here. But she could have run for anything. She could have done something besides city council. She could have gone to the state. I have no doubt that she would have won. I think she could have run for Congress. She was just one of those special people. But she chose to keep her focus here on the city of Greensboro, not only her political life, but in her professional life, starting one step further over 40 years ago for children to help them, divert out of the criminal justice system. She has just dedicated her life to all of us, and we're going to continue to be the recipients of her hard work. That phrase that she always said was that public service is the rent you pay for living on this earth, and that is so true. I read a proclamation at the funeral which was inspired by her granddaughter, Lillian Sequoia. And Lillian Sequoia she tied in that the day that Yvonne was sworn in as mayor was December 4th, 2007. And the day that she passed away was December 4th, 2024. So I declared in my proclamation, and I'm going to get council to ratify it when we do a resolution in her honor, and we may need a special meeting for that because the resolution will be so incredibly long. But December 4th, every December 4th going forward, will be the Honorable Yvonne Jeffries Johnson Day. And that should be a day where people work in service because that's what she would have done. To my knowledge, we've only done that for one other person, and that was Dr. Ronald McNair, A&T graduate and astronaut who perished in the Challenger explosion. To my knowledge, those would be the only two people who have had a proclamation in perpetuity, and I can't think of anybody who is more deserving of that. And sometime in the next couple of weeks, we will do a resolution, and we will try to get the highlights of her life. And that's going to be a hard job to come up with that resolution. And I know that there will be a naming opportunity in her honor sometime over the next couple of months. We want to do something that truly recognizes Yvonne for the trailblazer that she was and for all the people that she's impacted here in the city of Greensboro. So Yvonne, we're gonna miss you. True and faithful servant. We loved you. Go with God, and we will never forget. Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have to acknowledge it was an amazing opportunity for me to be able to just know someone who was not just a giant in this community, but to see the recognition that she's received for the things that she's done. I'm going to kick it in a second to Chris Wilson because he spent even more time with her, but it's really amazing when someone passes away, the things that you find out. And just, oftentimes people, when they see us from afar, they don't know the relationships that the council members have with staff. I've had a number of staff members tell me that she was kind of their person, that she would give them a call to encourage them. If it was a hard council meeting, she would encourage them to keep going. And personally, I remember stepping into the role as an assistant city manager, and I was in awe of her because I knew that she was a giant. And so I was kind of afraid to talk to her because, Yvonne, she didn't give off too many expressions. And I just remember about a month in, it was like my second meeting, and I was walking in outside, and she was sitting down smoking, and I was going to try to walk by her. And she told me to come over here and sit down beside me, and I thought, okay, I'm going to sit down while she's smoking a cigarette. But, from that point on, she pulled me in and treated me like I was hers. And it was just amazing to see her, to see the things that she did. And also from our end, from a staff perspective, yes, like I think Zach and a few others said it, she didn't say a lot, but a lot of times what everybody else wouldn't see is that she would grab us and show us how to do that mitigation, how to navigate through things, and how to always work it out when everybody might not agree. And so I'm just thankful to have known her. Like you all, as a parent, it is amazing to see what her children and her grandchildren are going to do, and I'm excited to see what they're going to become for this community. And I'm going to kick it over to Chris. I think he's got a few words too.
I guess I'm going to spill the tea a little bit. You know, those of you that watch us from the public see us, but you don't actually see us. What you see us do, or when we disagree or we go back and forth, that's about making good decisions for this community and making sure we get it right. What you don't see is the camaraderie we have outside of this. I could give stories about everybody on that dais. Seeing everybody together at the service reminded me that Yvonne exemplified what she told us we should do, which is put love first. In particular, she fussed at all of us to always listen to others, even if we disagree, to hear them out. Make decisions with love and kindness in your heart. And she was our conscience. She was truly our conscience. I think I've known Yvonne since I started. She would do things to boost my confidence because she knew sometimes I struggled with it. She would do things to embarrass me to death because she thought it was funny. Which it was, frankly, because I turn red when I get embarrassed. She would remind me when I didn't act right. I told a funny story the other day about Nasha and I at some event. This was years ago. It was an art unveiling. And I was on my phone. And she looked at me and said, "Put that phone down. That's being rude." I said, "But Miss Yvonne," she said, "No buts, put the phone down." I said, "Miss Yvonne," she said, "What?" I said, "I'm supposed to be covering this. The city manager wanted me to post on social media." She said, "I didn't ask you that. Put your phone down." I said, "Yes, ma'am." We had a hard meeting one night, got on the elevator, and she looked at me and she said, "Smile." I said, "Yes, ma'am." And then she proceeded to dance with me. She is everything that you've said and more. We saw it in her family, which is incredible. We saw it in everybody in the audience. You know, I'm looking out over that audience and I'm seeing people that I have known and either worked with or had some level of relationship with. And there was true miss on everybody's face. That's the mark of a person. It's how you make them feel. She made every one of us feel good, even in the worst moments, even when we did disagree. It's a struggle to look up there. It's a struggle to look at that seat. I know she is happy right now, and I know she's with Walter, and I know she is living what she deserves. But she's not there to wink. or to smile or to tell me to look up or to shake me off when I want to say something stupid. And I'm going to miss that. And I hate it for all of us, but at the same time, as you all have said, she left an indelible mark. And I really think it's important for all of us, and me too, to do exactly what she wanted us to. And in all those moments that we make these tough decisions, keep being there for each other and make decisions with love and compassion, because that's more important than anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I turn it over to Chuck, I do want to thank our city clerk, Angie Lord, for this beautiful flower arrangement in honor of Yvonne as it sits here today, highlighting her favorite purple color. Angie, thank you so much for that touch. Mr. City Attorney?
Well, like all of you, I have a lot of feelings about her and not being here. And passing after such a long career. Really have a lot of respect for that she lived her life, really up till then. I hope I can do that. One thing I did want to tell is kind of a funny story. We all have them. Of course, in this setting, I have to clean it up in a way that it's really not going to be what she said, but you'll know what I mean. When I first got here, the first review I had, I was calling up trying to lobby her to give me a few more points on my review or whatever. And I got maybe 30 seconds into that, and she cut me off. And she said, Chuck, in her words, she assured me that I had a good review. That's not what she said.
Yeah.
And then she told me to shut up, and that's not exactly what she said either. And then she said, love you, honey. Click. She was to the point.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a hard meeting, and we're going to miss her steady hand. And with that, I move to adjourn. Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.